The Jacket by Andrew Clements. Part 5. Something
in the tone.
in the tone. Something in the tone. Phil usually slept in on Saturday morning, so his dad was surprised to see him in the kitchen a little before 9. Early basketball practice today? Nope, just couldn't sleep. Phil gave a big yawn. Couple eggs sound good? Sure. Phil grabbed a clean glass from the dishwasher. Phil grabbed a clean glass from the dishwasher, got out the orange juice, poured himself a glass, and sat down. Page 58. His dad liked to cook, and Phil watched as he cracked both eggs, one-handed, against the side of the frying pan. As they started to sizzle in the butter, his dad said, "So, how's the team look this year?" "Team looks great. First game's next week against Regina." "You gonna start?" asked his dad, one eyebrow cocked. Phil shook his head. "I don't think so. There's another guy who's taller than I am, and he's a really good shooter too. I'm gonna get to play, but I think the coach will start him at center instead of me." "This other center, black kid?" Phil heard something in the tone of the question. "Yeah, Dennis Hardy." "Figures," his dad said, flipping first one egg, then the other. "Definitely something in that tone." Phil said, "What do you mean?" Page 60. His dad shrugged. "I mean, find me a team anywhere in the whole country that's not mostly blacks. That's all. And now even golf. Probably bowling next. Be nice if some other folks got some game too. That's all." He slid the cooked egg onto a plate, dropped on 2 pieces of toast, put it down in front of Phil, and said, "Breakfast of champions. Eat up." Then he sat down across the table, picked up his coffee mug, and turned to a fresh page of the sports section. Phil ate a bite of eggs and then drank some of his juice. "Dad, don't you think it's great to watch a game when guys like Shaq and Hardaway and Ewing play? I mean, they're great players, right? And Jordan, he's the best, right?" His dad shrugged. "Sure, don't get me wrong. It's fine that those guys are so great. Great is great. But see what I mean? When you think about great, do you remember Bob Cousy or Larry Bird or Bill Walton? No, you remember Wilt Chamberlain and Magic Johnson and players like Ainge and Stockton. Forget about it. These days, it's all about the black guys, so don't get me started." There was a knock at the kitchen door, and Phil looked at the clock. 9. That was Lucy. He got up and opened the door for her. "Hi, Lucy." She smiled and said, "Well, Philip, this is a surprise. You're up bright and early this morning." "Uh-huh." Then Lucy saw his dad at the table. Phil watched her. Lucy seemed to pause a second, adjusting her face and her voice. Then she said, "Morning, Mr. Morelli." Phil watched, and his dad didn't look up from the newspaper. Page 62. He barely looked up from his newspaper. "Hi," he said. And again, Phil could hear something in the tone of his dad's voice, and Phil knew that Lucy could hear it too. Walking out of the kitchen, Phil passed Jimmy in the family room, glued to the TV, flipping from cartoon to cartoon. But Phil hardly noticed. He was thinking. All his life, Lucy had called him Philip, and she had called his brother Jimmy and his sister Juliana. And for as long as he could remember, Lucy had called his mom June, because that was her name, June. Because, like his mom had said, Lucy was a friend. But Phil couldn't remember Lucy ever using his dad's first name. She always called him Mr. Morelli, never Nick, always Mr. Morelli. And for the first time in his life, Phil understood why. Page 63. At about 11:15, Phil was in his room. His mom had sent him there to make sure everything was picked up off the floor. So Phil dug some stray socks out from under his bed, picked up the CD cases and books that were spread around on the carpet, and then began stuffing some shoes and a couple of dirty sweatshirts into his closet. For years, he and Lucy had had a cleaning day deal. As long as Phil got the floor clear of obstacles, she'd leave his closet shut. Phil pushed the door closed with his shoulder and flopped onto his bed to listen to a song. 3 minutes later, there was a loud knock on his door. "Come in," he had to yell to be heard above the music. As Lucy stuck her head into the room, Phil hit the stop button on his CD player. "I've got some work to do in here." And then, page 64, "and then I'm going to run the vacuum. You in or out?" "I'll leave in a minute." Phil plugged in his earphones and put them over his ears, but he didn't start the music. He started reading some song lyrics, but he was actually watching Lucy. She began at his dresser, lifting up each picture, each of his basketball trophies, dusting underneath, and then putting things back. As she worked, she hummed a little tune, her hands busy. Phil pulled off the earphones, cleared his throat, and said, "You know, your grandson goes to my school." Lucy nodded. "I guess I knew that. It's the Kerwin school, right?" "Uh-huh." Lucy kept working, now dusting the bookshelves above his desk. Phil said, "Did Daniel tell you about what happened on Thursday?" "Something about his jacket, right? I heard about it, but not from him. I don't think he wants to talk about it." "Well, it was kind of my fault. I didn't know it was his, so I thought he stole it or something. He got pretty mad about it." Lucy smiled, nodding again. "He does have a temper, that boy, but he gets over things. You didn't mean him any harm. Any fool knows that, and he's no fool. Straight A's in all his classes, smart as a whip." Lucy had finished dusting, and she stepped into the hallway and pulled the old Electrolux, that must be the vacuum cleaner, through the doorway. Phil jumped off his bed. "Here, I'll plug it in." "Thank you." Lucy was ready to switch on the vacuum cleaner, but Phil said, "I think I'd like to call him. Daniel, can you tell me his phone number?" "Sure can." And Phil grabbed a pen and a note card off his desk and wrote down the number. "Thanks, Lucy." She smiled at him. "You're a good boy, Philip, a nice young man, and so's my Daniel. Now you scat out of here and let me get my work done." Phil stuffed the note card into his back pocket. He went straight downstairs and into the family room. As he turned on the computer at the desk against the wall, he felt bad. What he just said to Lucy was like what he had said to his English teacher on Friday about how there might be a note in the office from his mom. It was almost a lie, but not quite a lie. He was lying, though. Okay. Phil didn't really intend to give Daniel a call, at least not today. Today, Phil had a very different plan. With a few clicks, he activated, page 67, he activated the modem. This is when internet was slow, you guys. We used modems. Modem.
In MySpace.
Yeah. It makes a noise. And it takes a while. He activated the modem, and it began to chirp and whine. Phil knew exactly what he was doing because he'd been thinking about it all morning. He went to a search engine, clicked on Find People, then clicked on Reverse Lookup. He typed in Daniel's phone number, and in 2 seconds, there it was on the screen. 2518 Randall Street. And once he had Daniel's address, after only a few more mouse clicks and a few more key taps, Phil printed out a detailed map that showed exactly how to get from his door to Daniel's. Studying the map, Phil was surprised. Daniel didn't live that far away, just a little more than 2 miles. And Phil thought, 2 miles? That's not far at all. I run farther than that during one basketball practice. After he shut down the computer, Phil went to the front hall closet and pulled on a stocking cap. Page 70, his cross trainer Nikes, and a hooded sweatshirt. He stuffed a pair of lightweight gloves into the front pocket of his sweatshirt. Then he leaned down and picked up his gym bag. In the kitchen, Phil peeled a piece of paper from the memo pad by the phone. In large letters he wrote, "Going to run over to Lee's house. Maybe play some b-ball. Be back later." As Phil signed his name and put the note under the salt shaker on the kitchen table, he knew he was letting himself get away with another half-truth. In other words, he's lying. Yes, he was actually going to run over to Lee's house. That was the true part. But when he got there, Phil knew he wouldn't stop. He was going to keep on running. He was going to take a nice long run all the way to 2518 Randall Street.